keep your head up. San Diego's a great craft beer community. It's not going away. It's simply mature. There's still plenty of people drinking craft beer. We've been through these life cycle or these business cycles before. It's okay. We're going to be fine. Be tenacious out there.
You are listening to the Capital of Craft podcast, brought to you by the San Diego Brewers Guild. I am your host, Eric Fowler.
And I'm Jeff Fox of Beer Media Co.
And we are sitting down with a very special guest, Marc Martin, today. Welcome, Marc.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
So we are going to sit down and talk about something that every brewery deals with, right, is selling beer, right? It's one of the nasty things that we often like talking about making it. We like talking about drinking it. But when it comes to selling it, some of those topics can be a little bit more of a hurdle and almost a taboo to talk about. So let's sit down and let's have a conversation on self-distributing and what that looks like. Let's talk about breweries like 1,000 to 3,000 barrels and what some of the challenges they may face.
Yeah. And if you want to like start with just kind of like, your background and kind
of what we do at the Brewers Guild and all that fun stuff.
Yeah.
So let me start with the Brewers Guild out of the gates here. So certainly it's been a challenging year for the Guild, only because of some of the transition that we had in place. Paige did an amazing job for us while she was there, and she moved on. And so we had a couple of members that were transitioning in and out at the same time. We had to find a new leader, and Eric was the guy that stepped up, and he's been absolutely tremendous for us. His passion. No, we really love it as a board. Rick Chapman said it, I think, best at the last board meeting. He said, this is one of the finest board member groups he's seen in a long time. So he's very optimistic about us. And we certainly have some work cut out for us. Like I said, it's been a transition year, but we're very confident with some of the things we're bringing to the table that we can start to show everybody some really good value again. So thank you for your leadership. You're doing great.
Thanks for your support.
As terms of me, guys, I've been in the beverage industry forever. I've really enjoyed myself.
And you're still here.
And I'm still here. Yeah. I've worked for a bunch of brand name companies that you'll know. I'll mention a few in a second. And I also own and operate my own consulting business in the space, in the beverage space. And, I've got about 30 years of senior level beverage alcohol experience. 17 of that last 30 years has been spent in craft beer directly. I was very fortunate enough to work for Carl Strauss Brewing Company that whole time. They are an amazing brand and great people over there. I started my career straight out of San Diego State, went to Gallo as a sales rep and got a heck of an education and a nice 2-year training out of those folks. And so it set a great foundation for myself. I moved on to Seagram's. I did the bottled water industry for a time. That was an absolute blast. It was like craft used to be back in the day. Spent a little time. I got out of beverage industry. I went into franchising and did a lot of television advertising and that sort of stuff. And so that was fun. And then I came back to craft. I most recently just finished up as CEO for Thorn Brewing Company, another great group of folks. And I love the beers that they make down there. So that's kind of where I'm at. Personal, been married for 23 years, got 2 gorgeous daughters. They're 17 and 20. Lived in San Diego for over 40 years now. And I just love being in this business. It's great.
We love having you.
Yeah, wealth of knowledge. And you've probably seen distribution in terms of beer or any product really from many perspectives. And one of the first beer jobs I had was working for a nano brewery where I did everything, and I was slinging beer out of the trunk of my 96 Nissan. And I don't remember how many sixtels I can hold, but I remember breaking my back on a couple half barrels in the passenger side door a few times.
That's great. We fit 8 kegs in a Prius before. It's not a wise idea, but you can do it.
But distribution can be one of the biggest challenges, and from personal experience and from what I've seen and struggles as breweries grow, it's the sweet spot in terms of managing a small mom and pop brewery is about 800 to 1,000 barrels. Is my experience. When you get beyond that and you begin having more beer than you can sell across your bar, which fortunately a lot of breweries are opening up multiple tap rooms now and finding ways to do that and keep those margins, it can be really difficult in terms of managing that from staff, quality, time. Oftentimes a lot of these people aren't really professionals in sales and distribution. And what resources should be going into that. And I've seen a lot of breweries fail when it comes to self-distribution, or maybe not fail, but haven't succeeded. What has your experience been on that smaller scale when it comes to creating a successful program or branch of your company?
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad you guys invited me on today, because it's really fun to talk about the hyperlocal breweries in town. They're still getting a lot of action out there, but they still need some guidance, right? And just like you said, Eric, that owner he's the CFO, he's the brewer, he's the HR person, he's the salesperson, he's the marketing guy, he's everything, and it gets overwhelming for folks. And so, when you're going to start self-distributing beer here in San Diego, it's certainly doable, and everybody can kind of start out like you've started out. And we can get into a little bit more detail of regulations and stuff like that, whatnot. But first and foremost, I think people need to really understand the competitive landscape and what you're getting yourself into, and if you how are you going to find a way to differentiate your brewery different than the other 150 or so of us that are out there in San Diego County today? And that's sometimes a very difficult question to answer. And I can give you a few examples. If you look at my client over at West Brew, for example, they are woman and disabled veteran owned, and so they're able to make a pretty good call there. Somebody like Duckfoot, gluten-free, right? Even good old Carl Strauss Brewing Company, they can differentiate themselves by saying they're the most award-winning brewery on the planet, and the first brewery in San Diego City since Prohibition. So something you can hang your hat on, As you start to understand that, you really need to also make certain that you understand the regulatory hurdles of getting into this business. You don't want to get yourself in trouble. And so I just always recommend that people do a little bit of a dive into the rules and regulations of self-distributing your beer. It's totally doable for you. But just make certain that you understand proper invoicing. Make certain that you know things like 30-day credit terms and how to, preferably if you're self-distributing, you get paid COD. You want to always make certain that you've obtained a reseller license and an ABC license copy. People always forget that step. Make certain that you're filing COLAs, your certificate of label approvals, if you are sending product out to market so you don't get in trouble. Understand how to handle keg deposits and returns. If you really need some legal help, Candace Moon's always been a pretty good reference for everybody here in town, and she can do that. When it comes to the ways to get to market, there's multiple distribution methods, as you pointed out. My preference for guys that are just starting out in the industry, even if you're just still around that 1,000 to 3,000 barrel range, is going to be for the driver sales model. And I liken it, if I really kind of make it simplified, it's the ice cream man. You load up the van every morning with beer, you put a salesperson in there, and they become your driver and your deliverer at the same time, and hopefully they come back with an empty truck at the end of the day. That's very manageable in the beginning for you until you begin to get a little bit bigger, and then things take a bit of a change, right? When you get a little bit bigger, sometimes we become pre-sell people, where we maybe put a couple of salespeople into the marketplace, and then 24 to 48 hours later, a delivery guy is going to show up with that product for you. The next rung would be getting up to your third-party distributors, and that's a big jump. You especially in this day and age, you've got to have a brand that's going to resonate inside their distributorships. But there are all sorts of distributors that you can explore out there. Certainly we all know the beer ones, but there is wine, there is liquor, there are non-alc distributors who sell beer. There are boutique distributors, there's large distributors. So there's lots of opportunities. The most important thing once you get to that level is that you understand contracts and that you understand what you're getting yourself into and how you get yourself out of it.
Yeah,
okay,
makes sense.
There is an old, every once in a while it pops up a warehouse direct program, which is kind of fun for a few folks, and Trader Joe's will sometimes run that, Costco. And then finally, direct to consumer. A lot of us here in the state are able to sell beer right over our own websites within the state. And for a hyper-local brewery, that's not a bad way to go. You can kind of pre-sell everything too, and oftentimes find out in advance what you're going to need to make,
G'day, merry mates of the podcast realm. It's your feathered friend, the Tapwise Owl, flapping in to lend a wing to your brewery. An owl much wiser than me once said that recurring revenue is as delightful as a moonlit night. But let's face it, those loyalty programs from Arrive, Square, and Toast are a bit like a half-kicked emu egg. Fear not, for I am here to soar to your rescue. My magical membership system lets you automatically collect recurring revenue and shower your guests with rewards and bring them back to your taproom. How's it done, you ask? Simple. Through your very own brewery app, mate. custom branded just for you. And here's the kicker. It works seamlessly with every point of sale out there. San Diego Brewery Guild members get up to $500 off. That's a bonza deal. So grab your owl whistle and give me a hoot. Nah, just kidding. It's not the 90s, mate. Hop on over to tapwise.com. That's TAPWYSE.com. Or give me a squawk at 760-283-8847. Don't forget to drop Eric Fowler's name for a little extra magic. Fowler. Get it? No worries. Bit of a cranky parliament today. Cheers, Cobbers.
Now is a harder time than ever for breweries to navigate the rapidly changing market, but Beer Media Co. is here to help. As a proud partner of the San Diego Brewers Guild, we are a full-service digital marketing and content creation company that works with San Diego breweries to reach new customers and create amazing engagement for their websites and social media accounts. If you are a small brewery owner trying to figure out the whole social media thing, or a larger brewery looking to up their engagement, send us a message at info@beermedia.co because we know SD Beer.
Yeah, keeping it local, I think, is key. And we saw breweries toy with that shipping directly to consumer in California model over COVID. And I know I personally bought from Sierra Nevada and Firestone Walker, and Sierra Nevada had 12 packs of mixed Bigfoot for like $20. And then if I ordered $100 worth, shipping was free. And I've worked on the shipping logistics side before, and there's no way they made any money on that. And I think beer not being the premium product like wine is, it makes it difficult because the cost of shipping relative to what you're paying for the product is almost 1-to-1. Whereas wine, there's a perceived value where I'm getting 12 bottles, but I'm paying $400 for the bottles. So $80 for shipping isn't as bad. But 12 bottles of beer that cost me $80, you know, that amount of shipping, there's the perceived value is not quite the same. So I found that to be not sustainable like we were hoping.
Yeah, no, liquid's heavy, you know, and then you're going to put more liquid in a case, it's going to cost you. You know, bottled water was not cheap to ship around the country, you know. And so, yeah, it's something to really take into account, especially when you go to market expansion. Someplace you got to tack on that freight, you know, and now you could price yourself off the market or off the shelves or whatever that case may be.
I mean, and that's actually an interesting thing to me is like, you know, you kind of were talking about that like 1,000 to 3,000 barrel kind of range. Is, you know, how wide of distribution should people kind of be looking at in those kinds of ranges? Like, are you able to be a national brand at that range? You know what I mean? Like, or how local should you stay?
No, for my money, honestly, in the beginning, I would keep it tight, you know, and if you're going to, for hyper-local breweries, I've always recommended, get out there and self-distribute first, give it a shot. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a lot about your brand. You're going to learn what's good about it and what's bad about it. And you got to have some thick skin, but it's going to be a heck of an education for you, you know. You want to understand the difference between on-prem and off-prem, and where do you want your brand to play? You want to play in both? Okay, no problem. Those delivery windows are completely different from one another. You know, if I'm going into off-prem grocery stores, that program's done by 10 o'clock in the morning. You're not getting in the back door after that, you know, so get out of bed early. On-prem, no problem. You can kind of pick and choose your battles. Just don't talk to them during lunch or talk to them during dinner, you know.
Which makes visits really difficult.
Right. But, you know, I've always preferred for hyper-local breweries, especially in that 1,000 to 3,000 barrel room, aim for your on-prem accounts first. I prefer to chase the profit, you know, and it's a great way to get your brand out there. Certainly there are independent markets and boutiques. There's plenty of independent liquor stores here in San Diego that are just wonderful for craft. They're a really great force for us. Your Jimbos, your Barons, you know, those kinds of accounts. The Vons and the Pavilions and the Ralphs, I just got done talking with those headquarter buyers this week, you know, and you just got to be careful before you enter into that because it's a big boys game at that point. And if your brand's not moving and you get discontinued, you're not getting back in, you know, so pick and choose your battle strategically there. I will tell you one thing, you know, oftentimes I have hyper-local breweries say, but Mark, I don't even know where to start. How do I build a list? Where do I go? Do I just jump in the car and start driving around town, you know? And that's challenging, right? You know, but if you're kind of think through it a little bit, if you go on a lot of our websites in San Diego today, a lot of us craft brewers will post, find my beer, right? plug your zip code into Find My Beer that's in your brewery, and it's going to pop up all these locations around your brewery where that particular brewery is selling their beer. And if you're not there, it's probably a pretty good place to start.
Yeah.
And I'm not recommending that you go obviously knock the other brewery off, but you certainly know that you have a warm lead. You have an account that's already buying craft beer. He's in your backyard. She's in your backyard. Go over, knock on the door, and talk to them. You might be surprised. You might make a sale just like that.
And willing to work with a self-distributed brewery, because
willing to work,
as a buyer, it's kind of a pain in the ass, right? They can be inconsistent. The delivery windows and like days can be very limited. Whereas but they can be more flexible to that extent too, right? You might need to be more flexible in the sense that if their stone delivery was Tuesday and it's Thursday and they maybe kick the beer and need something to fill that, and you don't usually deliver there on a Thursday or Friday, you might have to secure that.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Yeah, when you're self-distributing, you have to be real flexible. That's why it's very important to not get too far away from the brewery, right? San Diego's a pretty large county. I love self-distributing San Diego County. If you look at it on a map, it's a giant rectangle. It's very easy to get around this county, and that's why people are able to be successful at it. You try self-distributing Los Angeles or Orange County, it's a different game. It's a lot bigger, a lot more density going on up there. But with San Diego, we've got this beautiful little border. And so I've always found it to be really advantageous for those guys out there. When I have folks going in and calling on accounts the first time, it can be intimidating. You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes retailers can be a little bit salty to deal with, and you're probably the 10th salesperson they saw that day, and they're already sick of you. So I just tell folks, people buy from people they like. Very simply put.
That's true.
And if you can go into a place and make friends with somebody, and talk to them about your brand a little bit and slowly begin to grow out concentric circles from the main point of your brewery, you can sell and deliver that yourself, and don't hop, skip, and jump across counties and things like that. It makes it very difficult.
So it's obviously difficult for owners or upper management to do everything, but when taking that first step, like how would you suggest a brewery owner be involved in that process? Are they the ones actually getting turned down and learning what that's like? I mean, that's probably the best feedback, but if you're already established and you're busy, what are those ride-alongs, or what does that interaction look like to ensuring that your staff is actually representing your brewery like how you want them to be?
Yeah, there is a real big difference in that, right? And so you're basically going from being the salesperson to now you're being a sales manager, and you're still the owner of the business. And you have to get stuff done through other people. That can be challenging. And with salespeople, they're always out of sight because you want them out of sight. They should be out in the streets making sales calls, which then puts another anxiety on you because are they making sales calls?
Right.
So yeah, certainly in the beginning, do your best to do it yourself. I've done it myself. I've thrown beer in the back of the truck. I have grown in concentric circles outside. I've built it all the way up to $20,000 before I couldn't handle it anymore on a month, calling on and off prem accounts, hauling that beer out of the back myself, going in. You have to remember, you got to put it away. You have to tap it. It's not just run in and run out,
So roughly, like what would the dollar amount of a successful single rep delivery driver roughly be for that one individual? Like what's reasonable to expect from one of those employees? Because I've also seen conversations where the expectations are not aligned with reality, especially if there's no established accounts. That
You're
they're
starting
just
from scratch and you expect that to be in Vaughn's and everywhere in a week. Like, no.
Yeah, it's just like they're beating their head against the wall saying this sales rep, this person that works my tap room once a week because I can't afford to make them full time, and delivers and cleans the lines and sales. Like what is the how do you quantify that being successful or even worthwhile? Or is it just a marketing opportunity to begin with?
It is. It's a little bit of both. I mean, if you want to quantify it, dollar wise, the first thing you got to do is build a budget, right? You got to understand what your sales revenue is and then start plugging in all those line items to figure out, okay, can I overcome this or not? And so first thing I'll start is by doing a conservative, a moderate, and aggressive budget, because I'm never quite certain what's going to happen in the market, even though we all can predict and hope and all that good stuff. Things change, and so at least if you've got all three of them, you can course correct throughout the year if you have to. When you're self-distributing, every brewery is going to be a little bit different, obviously, compared based on their capacity and their marketing plans and their goals and whatnot. But a decent rule of thumb for me always was, if a salesperson was generating about 30 keg equivalents a week in business. They were pretty much paying for themselves at that point. They could overcome their salary, maybe a little bonus, a car allowance, a phone, and some of the things that go with all of that. So it's kind of a number for you to hit, or at least aim for, and it's not easy to do that in this market. This market, that's quite a lot, So in the beginning, I always recommend that the owner go out there themselves and they spend the time doing that, just so that you can become a better sales manager. If you've done the job, you should be able to manage the person a little bit better, when you bring a salesperson on.
So you're talking 600 to 700 barrels a year. Per sales rep.
Per sales rep, right? Yeah, that'd be feel about right. In this county, you can high spot, which helps a lot, right? We don't have to be in every single account. We can pick and choose the ones that we want to be in. A lot of that's going to be based on what capacity does my brewery have, and how much of that beer do I want to sell to my own tap room? Do I want to push out into the marketplace? And there's a balance there, because you really need to make certain that you do a little bit of both, right? But if you're a brewery that's just starting out and you need revenue and you need margin, the quickest way to get that is over your own tap room and driving traffic to yourself the whole time, versus running around trying to sell kegs and packaged beer to accounts and all the extra fun that comes with that. The two play off of each other, though, because typically the consumer is going to trial you in the on-prem world, and then they're going to repeat purchase you in the off-prem world when they see the brand again. And that's how you kind of begin balancing the seesaw a little bit there, and moving your brand forward.
So raise top line, succeed.
Yeah.
If only or that
and
easy.
Repeat. Yeah, and repeat, right? Example. It's only that easy, right? Because you will get to a critical mass at some point where you can't service the market any better. You're just basically maintaining accounts now, right? Once you get to that point, that's when you really want to start ranking your accounts, A, B, C, and D. Which ones of these do I want to keep dancing with, and which maybe should I let go because they're just not they're taking a lot of time, but they're not generating enough revenue for me. And at some point, the owner's going to get to the point where they're too busy to do all of that, and they're going to need to step in the sales manager role and then hire a salesperson, and in San Diego County, like I said, you can high spot, and get away with it. It's a large county. There's just a lot of accounts. And so if you start with one salesperson in your general market area and kind of help them to grow in concentric circles from out of there, you're going to be happier than if you start with a brewery here in North County and you start with a salesperson in South County. It's going to be a little hard, Yeah,
I learned that the hard way. But in terms of that, if let's say you want 40 accounts, and that's really what you're comfortable with. That's what you can manage, and maybe that's 20 active and 40 that order another 20 that order every once in a while. Attention brewing professionals, are you looking to elevate your presence in the heart of San Diego's craft beer industry? Consider joining the San Diego Brewers Guild as a professional or affiliate member today. Access exclusive benefits designed to propel your craft to new heights, gain entry to premier industry events and educational resources, and forge vital connections within our brewing community. Visit sdbeer.com to explore the full list of advantages that a membership offers. Join the Capital of Craft podcast and the San Diego Brewers Guild, celebrating craft beer in San Diego since 1997.
This episode of the Capital of Craft podcast is brought to you by William Kim and his team at Tax and Financial Group. If you're in the craft brewing industry, meet your wealth management advisor, William Kim, who specializes in comprehensive financial planning. From business succession strategies to retirement planning for both individuals and employers, and risk management solutions. Elevate your craft with your partners in finance, because just like a well-crafted brew, your financial plan deserves perfection. Please give them a call at 858-263-0064 for a no-cost consultation. Cheers! For a comprehensive review of your personal situation, always consult with a tax or legal advisor. Neither Cetera Advisors Networks LLC nor any of its representatives may give legal or tax advice. Securities offered through Cetera Advisors Networks LLC, doing insurance business in California as CFGAN Insurance Agency LLC, California Insurance License Number 0644976. Member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services offered through Cetera Investment Advisors LLC, a registered investment advisor. Tax and Financial Group is an independent of Cetera. 202-401-02-844. DOFU 01-2024. 5075 Shoreham Place, Suite 280, San Diego, California 92122. 858-436-0057.
What are the concerns with beer quality, right? And one of the best things I was ever told, and I've repeated it to anybody that will listen, was an embarrassment on my end. It was San Diego Beer Week, and Jamil Zanishev, it was a homebrew event, and he asked what I was drinking. And I said, oh, this new beer. He said, you're not drinking your own beer? I said, no, why would I drink my own beer? He said, know how it tastes.
Yeah.
And I just thought I felt so small because it was so simple. It made so much sense. And ever since, it's stuck with me, and I try it, and you know what? I'll be damned. Your beer tastes different everywhere.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. With lines, or are they cold storing it? You don't know once you've let it out of your hands.
It's crazy.
It really is. Yeah.
And there's been accounts where I've been like, I'm not going to say it here, but I might not sell. I'd be as eager to sell it here because the beer doesn't taste as good as at the brewery, and that should be the goal, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest challenges from going to selling over your bar. You have so much control.
Right.
And it can be if the beer spoils or becomes contaminated or oxidizes, because you're pouring in real time, and you can pull it and you can still sell some of it.
Right.
Whereas when you distribute, it's there. It's up to them to sit on for 6 months if they want, and then sell it, and then your beer sucks.
Yeah. We used to have a problem like that with a Hefeweizen, right? It was a gorgeous beer, but it was unfiltered. And so if it sat in an account too long, sometimes some of it would float to the bottom of the keg, and you'd start pouring clear beer.
Segura about that the other day, and just saying that I still love that beer. And assuming you're talking about Wind and Sea.
I love Paul Segura. Nobody puts baby in a corner. That's Paul Segura.
That's one of my favorite beers locally, and you just don't see those styles anymore. And I think there's such a part of the market that's really thriving for local versions of certain styles. And I'm curious to see who really comes out in the next couple of years and tackles that, because there used to be few Pilsners, and, Lightning and Powade for a long time killed it with Pilsner and Hefeweizen.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, just nobody else did it, and he did it well.
Yeah. Well, that's where the consumer's palate is today. It's certainly on the lighter end of the spectrum, and you got to have options for that. But it still doesn't mean that they're not drinking IPAs. I mean, there's always a market for that. I used to have an account here in town that would always tell me, one of our beers was, I think he had 6 taps or whatever it was. He goes, your beer comes in like 4th or 5th place. I said, well, somebody's has to. I said, they all don't pour at the same rate. It's a different style of beer. And sometimes you have to educate the account about that too. Hey, buddy, it's not going to pour through at a Coors Light pace. Of course it's not.
So before we have to wrap up today, how would you recommend a brewery presents a portfolio? Should they take everything that they have on the tap room and open it up to any account? Or should they specify certain brands when they're approaching these accounts and identify maybe gaps they have and try to fill that as a way to get in there to start?
Well, it's a little bit of both, Eric. First of all, especially today, because we all need sales and that kind of good stuff. I would make certain that the beer that you're pushing out into the marketplace is one that you're making some money on, because a lot of
double hazy IPA.
So really understand that. You might want to push your double hazy IPA, but it might be better to keep that in house. But the other thing is to just explore gaps in the marketplace. I can't tell you how much information can be found just from the retailers. If you just go sit with people, lots of people will help brewers out in this town. And if you go into an on-prem or an off-prem account and say, hey, look, I'm the owner of West Brew, for example. I need a little help. Do you have a few minutes? Could you talk to me? I'm trying to decide what my portfolio should be, and do that over a course of a bunch of accounts over the course of maybe a few weeks, and you'll start to find some opportunities. But I think one of the more important things that so many of us can do a better job of is those accounts don't know what beers are coming, right? It's just like, hey, we calling you. We got something today. Build out a beer portfolio calendar stuff for the year. It doesn't need to be something, totally grandiose or anything, but just something that can be a communicative tool. You can change it if you have to. That's okay. But give your accounts, your salespeople, your brewery, a roadmap of, hey, here's where we're going. Maybe Q1 is as much as you can do. Fine, call it good. Then when you're ready to do Q2, it become a great sales tool for you, because their salespeople can pre-sell in the marketplace and that sort of thing.
I mean, if you have a calendar for Q1 and everyone else has no calendar, that puts you one quarter ahead of your competition. So. Even if you can't get to the year.
I would ask when teaching workshops for brewers when it came to managing their cellar, I would have the whole class raise their hand on how far they're scheduled out. And I would say, raise your hand if you're a month scheduled out, raise your hand if 2 months. And our brewery at the time was about 1,000 barrels a year. And we were 1 month pretty solidified. Month 2, maybe it's going to change a little bit. Month 3 was there, but probably not going to end up looking anything like that. So we could order and manage
order
it
properly. Right. Not freak everybody out. Yep.
I would say too, when it comes to distributing those first kegs or cans, take it to a liquor store or an account, put your tap handle up against the other ones and put your can up on a shelf too and see what it looks like, because it looks great when it's displayed by itself. And even the tap handles in your tap room look awesome. And you get next to everybody else's and you might realize maybe it's wide and there's a lot of faucets that are really tight and then it ends up being sideways. And there's so many little things that if you, like you said, ask, if you do a little bit of research and ask around, you'll be able to save yourself $3,000 on ordering tap handles that don't fit anybody.
Great advice, Eric. I've said that so many times too. Is all of our materials, our point of sale materials, our labels, our tap handles look beautiful on a computer screen. Are they functional at retail? Because that's a big problem if it's not. So. Guys, do you have a few minutes? Can I give you the last few parting words? You got a couple seconds?
Absolutely.
Just real quick. So I just, as I was driving up here, I threw a few more thoughts down just while you got me. And just as we're getting into the new year for brewers out there, if it's of any help. So look, everybody, it's been certainly a challenging year for all of us. I would recommend at this point in time, you focus on what you can focus on inside your four walls. Quit worrying about the noise out there. It's going to happen anyway, and you can't control it. What you can control is what you do inside the four walls of your business. So keep that in mind. I am real big on making certain that you've got a business plan, right? It can be a one-pager. It doesn't have to be anything complicated. You want to make certain that you have an annual budget. And like I said, a conservative, a moderate, and an aggressive approach. Use these as tools to keep yourself on track throughout the year when you get stuck in the weeds, because it's going to happen to you, especially as a single owner in a business like that. It's okay to review it monthly, and it might not be the greatest information you're looking at, but at least you know where you stand at any point in time instead of winging it like a lot of us do. Know your numbers, because you're going to find that your labor, your rent, and your cost of goods are three of the most expensive things that are going to be on that P&L, and you need to understand how to manage them. I'm also high on people understanding how much sales revenue you can generate from each account each month, so that you can begin to understand, and you can forecast that, how do I overcome my monthly expenses?
Are there any, just very briefly, any tools that like a CRM that would be used to help track that?
I've just done stuff in Excel, guys. I mean, really, there are some free tools online you can use. I'm not talking about buying something or anything like that, but just have something, the back of a cocktail napkin's better than anything.
Are some of those programs like QuickBooks and some of those actually?
QuickBooks works really well. I've had a lot of experience with that. Even Excel has been tremendous
that's what I've been
for me.
used, but I'm obviously in the marketing space, not
because you need to understand your cash flow and your burn rate, because so many of us don't, right?
And my account gets mad at us if I don't track stuff.
Before you go out and buy more shiny new equipment, have a plan. Have a plan to sell that excess capacity you're going to bring online. Just don't bring the equipment online and cross your fingers and hope for the best. Do the ROIs out there to understand what you're getting yourself into and understand how you're going to sell that extra volume before you pull the trigger on buying it. Like I said, review your P&L on a monthly basis. Do have an emergency plan in case that's on the shelf, just in case you need to pull that off. It's a lot better than getting caught flat-footed in an environment like this out there. We talked about creating an annual beer portfolio as a calendar. I think that last thing I would offer here is, have a plan to deliver your tasting rooms, your self-distributing process, whether it's going to be on or off prem, and just understand kind of where you want to go and what the end result or what your end goals are in mind. Last thing I want to say to everybody is cash is oxygen to you right now in this business. Okay. I've come off of a couple of challenges here of just trying to help people find money in town, and it takes time. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to take the money, but start building relationships today so should you need to pull that trigger at any point in time, it's there for you, because it takes time to get folks in there. Keep your head up. San Diego's a great craft beer community. It's not going away. It's simply mature. There's still plenty of people drinking craft beer. We've been through these these business cycles before. It's okay. We're going to be fine. Be tenacious out there. So
awesome. Well, we want to thank you for joining us today and all the time that you've put into the San Diego Brewers Guild. I think there's a lot that all of our board members and a lot of time and opportunities for volunteering that everybody puts in that doesn't, get acknowledged enough. So I want to use an opportunity to thank you for that. If anybody listening wants to learn more, wants to contact you, maybe to get your help, how would they contact you?
3 ways, guys. You can catch me at my website, m3consults.com. My email is marc, M-A-R-C, at m3consults.com, or my cell phone is 858-692-4415.
Ooh, careful.
It's fine. We have a couple podcasts on here that they give their phone number, and he doesn't get that many prank calls.
Eric, is that you?
I love it. And if you like what you're hearing today, and you want to hear more, make sure you subscribe to the podcast, and put it on all your different favorite podcasting platforms, and make sure to follow us on Instagram at SD Brewers to see more about the industry, what's going on, and to catch what we're up to.
Cheers.
All right, guys, cheers. Go get them.